Cunningham. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, young people across this nation must look at this government and think, what did we ever do to you? This government is trading off the future of young people time and time again across significant portfolio areas, making it more and more difficult for them, and yet they come into this place with a bill like the one before us, which adds to that burden. Now, for young people in my community, and I'm sure many of my colleagues across the board, they're facing challenges in getting, firstly, into post-secondary education opportunities. So we know the impacts of the freeze on the higher education funding and what that will do to universities and the offerings that they can make to students. We know that that will put pressure on them to decrease the opportunity to get a university qualification. That's where your interest and your ability lies. We know, despite, I have to say, I really admire the Assistant Minister's capacity to try and spin a good story out of what has been a devastation of the vocational education sector under their watch. She consistently attempts to say that this government is a serious friend of vocational education, where you just got to look at the figures. I mean, the massive drop in the number of people undertaking vocational education, the huge decrease in the number of apprentices and trainees. Each time, it's like in this space they've got one little lifeline that they cling to. So the Assistant Minister constantly raises that Labor cut back the employer incentives for traineeships, not for traditional apprenticeships, and that was because there was a misuse of traineeships going on. So if the government's critical of Labor actually ensuring integrity in the provision of apprenticeships and traineeships, which is what we did with those changes, then I can only assume that they don't have any interest in the rigour and integrity of the system. But the reality is that across electorates like my own, only a couple of weeks ago I was meeting with people involved in the TAFE sector about the concerns that have been impacted on diploma enrolments at TAFEs across the country as a result, to some significant extent, by the changes that the government's made around the vet fee help loan arrangements. That's causing a real problem, and we know that diplomas are right in that sweet spot where a lot of future career opportunities are going to lie. A lot of people, particularly retraining, re-entering the workforce, or indeed young people straight out of school, will go and do their certificate-level courses in areas where there's going to be huge job demand, aged care, childcare, disability care, and then seek to add the diploma onto that, and we've seen a massive drop-off in diploma enrolments, something the government just doesn't have an answer for. And it's the same with apprenticeships, over 140,000 fewer apprenticeships under their watch. So if, as the Shadow Minister says, there was a problem with what Labor was doing, why have they been digging the hole deeper? Like, they've actually not put in place a policy that has arrested, let alone reversed, that trend. And so we've seen, for young people across the board post-school, these pressures are mounting. Then let's add to that things like the cost of housing. So not only are they, and I've had many young people under 30 say to me, I don't think I'll ever own a home. Like, this is what young people say to you now. They're struggling to pay rents because the market is so competitive for them. So they've got those cost burdens on them. Then they're trying to support themselves while they're studying. Let's not even go to how incompetent and how long it takes to actually get your youth allowance processed and actually get payments coming into your bank account. I've heard stories of people going a whole semester with no income who are entitled to youth allowance. Then we'll get rid of their penalty rates, so that if they've got a job that they work on a Sunday, they can actually make ends meet. Yeah, we'll get rid of that too. And then, just to top it off, we'll bring this bill into the parliament and say, even when you're earning as low as $42,000, which is not a lot of money, as the Shadow Minister said, the idea of HECS is you pay back when you're actually reaping benefit from that investment. $42,000, you'd be lucky to be keeping your head above water. But no, we're going to rip into you and take some money from you then. So it is no wonder that young people will be looking at this government saying, when are you going to give us a go? When are you going to give us a future that we can look forward to? And I haven't even touched on policy areas such as climate change, such as health, and private health insurance. Talk to young people about that. This government is completely out of touch with young people's needs.